From the mountain to the prairie, to the ocean, white with gold. God bless.
Welcome once again to the Watchdog Report. My name is Ed Ciffone, President of the United Taxpayers of Yorktown and Yorktown Watchdog. Today is the 20th of December. You may not see this program on next week if the world comes to an end tomorrow. But let's all hope that the world will still be here when we are here next week. And listen, also, the senseless killing throughout the world, especially now in Sandy Hook, Newtown, Connecticut. Why are people going crazy? Listen, if this is evil, then where's the good and where's God trying to stop these people? So, my show today, I just want to say, if it shows next week, I want to hope you all had a wonderful Merry Christmas, even though with all these things that are happening, and a Happy New Year. I just want to say to a group of people I met at Mary Knowles concert, 3 kids, Eden, Jen, Jeannie, and Patrick. I told you I would announce your name on my show. I know you guys watch it, the adults and the kids. And also to Mona, who works with me, who watches the show all the time. Now, we want you to join the United Taxpayers of Yorktown, and you will see the show tonight, what we do to help you save on your taxes in Yorktown. So let me introduce my guest, Don Roberts, member of the UTY, friend, and colonel in the service, right?
You got it.
All right. Don, let's start right off about this budget process that we get aggravated every year about, but we do it anyway. So,
yeah, I think maybe for the folks watching, we may want to just explain what the process is. First of all, the supervisor of the Yorktown throughout the year formulates a budget, and they refer to it as the tentative budget. I'm going to call it the supervisor's budget. He presents that to the town board in early November. I think it was the 7th and the 8th of November this year. They interview various department heads and adjust the supervisor's budget and create what they call the preliminary budget. And that's the budget that we get to comment on. Well,
remember the dates that we first started. So
right,
the 9th.
Initially, the preliminary budget was supposed to be published or done by the 9th of November.
Right, that's the first one, yeah.
Yeah, then all of a sudden, that never happened, and it dragged out, and it turned into the 20th before it was actually created. So the preliminary budget was created on the 20th, and normally they print that thing pretty quickly, and they put it online. The budget hearing that we get to comment and the rest of the public was the 5th of December, if I remember
Right, my birthday, I remember, yeah.
Well, we didn't get the preliminary budget either online or in hard copy to the 3rd of December.
Right, 2 days before.
So we had 2 days to look at
how many pages?
This document, which was how many pages?
181.
Yeah. Not only did we have only a couple of days to look at it, but there's a critical column in the budget, and it's the percentage of difference between one year and the next.
2012 and 2013.
And the preliminary on 2012.
12.
Well, when they created the preliminary budget, they never put the right percentages in. They put the difference between last year's budget and the supervisor's budget, which was no longer applicable. So not only did we have 2 days to look at it, we had to go through and calculate percentages that were correct.
And what did Councilman Bianco say to you? That you don't know how to read a budget?
Yeah, there was some comment to that effect.
And then at the end, during when you showed him one line that it didn't add up, he says, "Yeah, this is wrong."
Yeah, exactly.
Then you agree. So,
exactly.
So take it with a grain of salt.
Well, yeah, you know, I can see there may be a delay, but that should have been online the 20th, and we didn't get to look at it till the 3rd.
Yeah.
But in the past, we've been looking at these budgets, and we've been making comments the last couple of years. And let's just go back 2 years. For instance, in 2010, the Yorktown budget said that they were going to borrow $500,000 from the fund balance. And the fund balance, we're going to talk about later on.
Yeah,
it's like a piggy bank.
Right.
You know, a contingency fund, rainy day fund. They said they were going to borrow.
Over taxpayers' money. That's
we'll get into that.
All right, yeah, okay.
They said they were going to borrow $500,000 from the fund balance. So the fund balance would have gone down in 2010. Well, in 2010, it didn't go down. It went up $1.5 million. So that's like a $2 million difference. And we've pointed that out to them in 10, that the revenues were understated and the expenses were overstated, and there was a $2 million difference. In 2011, they said that the fund balance would be borrowed, they would borrow $167,000. And guess what? At the end of 2011, the fund balance didn't go down 167, it went up 1.7 million. Well, looking at this budget,
right.
I think they might have gotten the message, because this budget was not that bad. I thought the revenue was pretty straight, and there wasn't too many expenses that I felt were out of line. So it was a good budget, but there were problems in it.
Oh yeah, a lot of problems.
And I think the media, looking at the various newspapers and online, I think they were focusing on the wrong thing. There were a couple of minor issues that we mentioned,
right.
But they were shooting squirrels and there's bears running loose. We talked about some big ticket items that were never mentioned in the paper.
Right, and we talked about the auditor's report that we have that none of the supervisor or the members looked at, because you could tell. They didn't know what you're talking about. We had to go up, show them the auditor's report. And what did that show? In December of 2011, December 31st, it was $4.1 million.
In the fund balance.
In the fund balance.
That's the rainy day fund.
Right. And then in the budget they had was $2.4 million, and we asked, where's the 2.6 that makes it the difference?
Yeah, you asked and I asked, and we've never gotten the answer.
I asked again Tuesday night to answer that
There's
question.
$1.6 million, and we're going to talk about what happened and how they did that. Well, let's talk about some of the minor issues that the press kind of focused on. I mean, these were minuscule, but we brought them up. There were discrepancies. For instance, you know, we mentioned the community center, the Yorktown CCC. About $2,000 in bottled water, and there's got to be fountains all over that place. It's a school.
Right, should be fountains instead of bottled water.
We talked about the municipal dues, which normally ran maybe $1,500. This year it's $5,000, and they didn't have an answer for that. They said, well, yeah, you know, yeah, okay, but no answer why it went up. There was custodian fees for the parks.
What was that big one for $130,000 increase? That was, oh gosh.
That was on the revenue.
Yeah, revenue.
But they claimed that was valid, and we'll see next year if it is.
Okay.
But on the Parks Department, there was a custodial fee. From 2009 to 2012, every budget, it's been in for $5,000. Right. So that's like $20,000. And you know how much they spent in those years on that?
Good.
$675. And this year they got it in for $6,000. And every year they claim they need it. And I'm saying,
well,
we never use it.
Remember the contingency fund that they put in for raises? That $100,000? Let's tell the folks about that.
Yeah, well, that's one of the big ticket items that nobody picked up on. We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
The other thing on the titles, if you look at this document, which is lengthy, there's a lot of titles of funds that you can't understand. Like the senior clubs, they get transportation, I think we give them 29 grand to what,
right.
6 clubs?
Six clubs, and they're supposed to have $2,700 a piece for travel and events.
If you look in this budget, you know what it's called? The line item, contractual. You'd never know what that is.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Contractual. There's any number of items in there.
They're fighting tooth and nail, those clubs.
Yeah, I realize that.
You see those up there?
Yep.
And they're all seniors. They should all be in one. all fighting for the same thing.
At the budget hearing, the UTY suggested that it be handled consolidated by the Parks Department rather than giving the money to separate funds.
And remember last year when you said that St. Pat's had people not in Yorktown? Well, they changed that now. They're having a new club starting with people from out of town that go to St. Pat's. So maybe we did that.
Yeah, probably some good came out of it. Last year, we cited that the criteria for a club getting money from the town was no more than 10% of the club members should not be residents. And we questioned, why should anybody get town money if they're not a resident? Right. So maybe they listen. Yeah. You know, the other thing that they listen to, and we've been hammering this thing for 5 years, is the sports clubs. We give $78,000 to 3 specific sports clubs, and we've been saying for years, hey, that's a great thing, but why don't they open their books to show us they actually need the money?
Right, we say it all the time.
And this year they said they're doing it, so we'll be checking, and we'll see what happens on that donation.
Well, that's what they're doing. They're checking the senior groups out to make sure they have their agreement and contract, and the same thing with the sports, which is good.
And you know, a couple other minor things like they had grants in there as an expense, and you know we questioned every year, what is the grant? Is it an expense generating a request for a grant? Is we granting money? And basically, you know, the grant is what they're using it for. So if they're redoing a room, that should be the line item, not the title grant. But there were a number of those. But those are the minor issues that
people. Right, let's get to the bigger issues.
The big issues. Let's talk about the big issues. The
Yeah.
contingency, as a for
Yeah,
instance.
right.
Every year, there's a line, with the exception of 1 year in the last 6 years,
Right.
there's a line item called contingency. Since 2007 to 2012, there has been contingency of $894,000 in the budget.
Right.
And you know how much of that was used?
No. Go ahead.
Zero.
None.
None. And what was the contingency? Every year when we asked, what is the contingency? They said, oh, that's because we don't have a contract with the police department, you know, we don't have a contract with CSEA, you know, we need money in the budget. They've never used it. And guess what? This year they have the contracts, and now they're saying, we don't have any money.
Right.
We have to borrow from the fund balance. Well, we'll talk about where they're getting the money from. They have to take some money from other districts. And they did take money from the fund balance. But in any event, they had that money for the budget, so over the years.
Right, and I asked this question at Tuesday night, I brought it up. Why don't you use that money that you haven't used in all those years for the raises? And his answer was, well, CSCA has another contract coming up. So that's Michael Grace, you know, the
contingency
Superfund.
for 2013.
13, this is what he's saying, okay? But meanwhile, it's still in the fund balance or the surplus money.
Yeah, you know,
in the budget.
What I would have thought should have been done was that the contingency money, if it wasn't spent for the police department or raises, put in a assigned fund for that purpose, so when they did get the raises, they could pull it out. But you know, one of the things that they did to bring in revenue to pay the police was they dipped into the fund balance, which is a good thing. But they also decided to up the fees that the town would get from our water department or our water district, our sewer district, and our refuse district. Now, I don't know a lot of people realize that the water budget, 5% of the revenues that they get, they give to the town for administrative reasons and police protection and things of that nature. And originally the town was saying, well, we have to increase that percentage that these districts give to the town from 5% to 6%. And the reason they said 5 to 6 is because the police department, they said, as a for instance, if the highway department has a problem, the police have to go out. The police got an increase. That increase should be passed on to the highway department. And, you know, we said, fine, that's not a bad idea if it's justified. But how can you justify a 1% increase in administrative service fees from 5% to 6%, flat across the board for the water, the highway, and the sewer. Have you ever seen a policeman riding around the garbage truck?
No, but they may, because of the garbage contract. You know,
that may be.
That may happen.
So we questioned,
Right.
you know, why dip into those 3 districts to get more money to pay for the police? You already had money
Right.
in the contingency,
Now-
and why a flat fee like that?
Right, and now this is a new thing with this new supervisor, Michael Grace, where they only used the tax levy from the highway, the general fund, and the library. He used all the funds. Now, this is why I'm in the Halleck's Mill Sewer District. He took $133,000 out of my district. And we don't know what's going to happen to our district. The water, he took $1 million something out of the water department, okay? Plus, they're putting new meters in the water department. So they had $6 million. The new meters that they just put $2,500 in cost $1 million. So that's $2 million out of the $6 million. So they're down to $4 million. Now, what are they going to do? They're going to put 10,000 altogether, all these meters into new people's homes. So we'll see what happens if it bites them someplace next year from taking that out. But that was new. And being that, instead of taking the 2% from that the highway, general fund, and library, which is $175,000 per 1% of the budget that we normally vote on. What he did now, he took that at $29 million instead of the 17.5. So he won budget to budget, I think $1.3 million. So just by that switch alone, he could raise the taxes up higher, but still be under the 2%. That's a scheme. That's a spin on stuff. But that's what. And then he's a lawyer, you know. And then when you try to tell him something, man, it's getting worse and worse. But listen, Don, yeah, that was big. Now let's get to this fund balance, because this show goes pretty quick.
Okay, the fund
Now
balance.
show them first that piece of paper that wasn't in the budget.
Yeah, in the past, we've had a graph in the budget that has the fund
Yeah, hold a
balance
little
by
higher towards it.
year.
Right.
And it says on the bottom here, the auditor recommends a minimum fund balance of 10%, since by law, towns must make school districts and county whole, whether the taxes are collected or not. What that basically means is if a taxpayer doesn't pay his school tax, the town has to pay. So the auditor says you should have a balance, a minimum of 10%. School districts only have a 4%.
Right, used to be 2, now it's 4, right?
And they have basically the same services as a town. They have buildings, they have employees, they have buses, whatever.
But a lot more.
But the fund balance, I know we've been accused any number of times of not wanting a fund balance. I want to say for the record, the UTY didn't have a problem with a fund balance. We just want a realistic fund balance.
And a limit on it.
Yeah.
Because that budget, according to get back to December 2011, that was 18% that we can't find the extra money.
Let's just explain what the fund balance is for the people who don't. Let's assume you have a piggy bank and there's $10 in it. And you're just figuring out, what am I going to do next week? Well, next week, I'm going to make $4, but my expenses are going to be $5. So what do I have to do? I have to take $1 from the piggy bank and use that next week. So I have $5, my salary plus the $1 is $5, and that'll pay my expenses, and I'm left with $9 in the piggy bank.
Right.
Well, at the end of the year, or the end of the week, I should say, let's say instead of your salary being $4, it's $2 more. It's $6. And let's say your expenses, instead of being $5, is only $1. So you're $1 less on your expenses and $2 more on your salary. So actually you got $3 more than you thought you had.
Right.
Well, if you had $9 in the piggy bank,
now it's,
and you have $3,
now it's 12.
now it's 12.
Yeah.
You should have 12 in your piggy bank.
Right.
That's not the way Yorktown does it. They say you have 9 in your piggy bank.
Right. What happened? Right. Where's the rest?
What happened to the 3? That's what we've been asking for.
Right, all the time. and this, people are going to understand when they hear fund balance or surplus, that's, you're overtaxed for that money. Okay? That's where you get it from. So every year I've been up there, I know you've done about 4 or 5 years together now, or 3 or 4 years together, but I've been doing it before. every time they raise taxes, that, and it says it in the budget, in the auditors report, that money goes towards the fund balance.
Yeah.
Because you showed them how they didn't spend $2 million in the last 2 years.
If you don't spend what you thought you were going to spend, and you get more than you think you were going to get, and that's what I'm trying to pull out in this example.
Right.
You have an excess which goes back in the fund balance.
balance.
Well, that's where we have a disconnect. Mm-hmm. In 2011, if you look at this budget, it says that the unassigned fund balance for the general fund was about $2.5 million. But you look at the auditor's report, and if you take the amount that they actually added to the fund balance in 2011, you come up with $4.1 million.
Right, yeah.
That's the $1.6 million. We don't know where it went.
Right. And then during the last year, they got another $1.3 million in surplus in the fund balance, where they assigned it to a reserve. 1.3. So they got another 1.3 million hidden. I asked that, where is it? Where's that money? So they said they don't have to record it in this budget because it's a surplus. It's a reserve. Now they want to use that for when people retire and accumulate their vacation time. Like John Goldberg had 70,000. It's in court, another court case. We can talk about so many court cases that are going on. But now they were trying to change the law Tuesday night that they wouldn't have this. So there's two people ready to retire. So they better take the money from Joan Goldberg's, that's 70,000, out of that 1.3 million. And if these other two people retire, they better take it out of there, not the budget. So that's another thing. So the thing what you're trying to say is this surplus of fund balance, we want to see the money.
What we need, and this was brought up by the auditor.
Oh, you're right.
The auditor who audited the town in July, he made some recommendations.
Right.
One of them was to establish a fund balance policy. That is critical. That be done now.
Right.
Because we don't know what the policy is. As a for instance, if you look at the town in its entirety, they have a fund balance of over $16 million, which is 30% of the entire town's budget.
Right.
I mean, if that's true, it's well over the minimum requirement of 10.
Right.
And I think most people do not extend beyond 20%. That's kind of the max between 10 and 20. But as a for instance, in total, that $16 million in 2011, that fund balance went up over $3 million. Again, so the fund balance keeps going up, but it doesn't seem to be reflected.
Right. That policy, if they said they're going to put a target at 15%.
We can live with 15 if they have it in the policy, but then keep it at 15.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And then at least we can see where the money is.
Exactly.
And this is the problem going up there every year. You talk to a wall. You ask them that question, and nobody gives you an answer. And then you stand there, well, what is it? And they don't know. They didn't look at the auditor's report. I don't think they even did the budget. Because until you brought up all those percentages that were wrong, everybody says, what is he talking about? And they didn't change one thing in the budget.
Well, they historically, that's the case.
Every year we go up and change one thing.
And what do they say? They say, thank you very much for all your input. Now we're going to vote on the budget.
But what do we say when we started? We don't want to do this unless you're going to be serious about taking stuff out of the budget that we present. And again, we should have just sat down because, and then Sue Siegel comes up, the former supervisor of the town, and she questions all this stuff. And I turn around to her, and we're telling her she was in office in 2010, 2011. She raised taxes, and we showed her all those millions of dollars in revenue and not spent money. She couldn't say much, but she's arguing with the new superintendent, supervisor of the town. Boy, I tell you, Don, when you look at numbers, they don't lie, and you hand you hand in the paperwork that these audit. Now, the best thing is that, look, the auditor wanted us to have a committee, a finance committee, right?
That was another recommendation.
Okay, that was another recommendation. He recommended no more than 10%. What happened to the auditor? They fired him. He's no longer the auditor. Now he's got to go for his job. They have a bid process. Now, they're looking at everybody else but that guy, that farmer, Toskin, I think that's how you say it, company. For me, that guy was really open, knew what he was doing, and Joan Goldberg. They had a person that was the deputy controller do the budget. She didn't have the experience. She was sitting at the chair, but she don't have the experience, and they put it all on her. So all at the end, they get rid of the controller, and they get rid of the auditors. So whose budget is it? It really is the supervisor's budget, you know? And that's what he did. And listen, we got a couple of minutes to go. So, you know, what else do you think about this budget now? Since they didn't change anything, since they didn't correct the percentages,
well,
that's falsifying business records to me.
I think what has to be done in the town, in my opinion, is that fund balance policy has to be done. The recommendation of the auditor and the Citizens Advisory Committee on the budget should be formed. And I know there's a number of people in the UTY who volunteered for that position, and it just didn't happen last year.
Yeah, we wrote it, right.
So
And then he says he's going to do it. Listen, Donnie Petey said the same thing to get elected. You know, never happened. He did the same, you know, he's telling us the same thing. Now let's talk about the raises for the supervisor. He's been in less than a year. He wants a 3% raise. He's going to go from 112 to 115. And the members of the board want a raise, okay? Plus they're getting benefits. We have Mary Forster here. She's the mayor of the town, only gets 13, and their councilmen only get 8, okay? This is crazy. This is it. You put people in office, and they can vote on their raises. That should stop one altogether. And this year we tried to get term limits for the same people that we voted for, and they wouldn't have a public hearing on it. These are the same people that the controller of New York State come down and said, all this mismanagement of money. We asked for a public hearing. No. So listen, this is a conspiracy against the people, and nothing gets done. You know how many lawsuits there are? You know how many lawsuits there are? This last thing with the garbage. You didn't have trucks. You didn't have people. He goes to Yonkers, and now there's people from Yonkers going to come and do the work. Yeah. How legal is that? So the company that was
I hope it works out.
The company that was there originally is suing the town.
Right. That's another.
That's another one, right? Then you got Sue Siegel being sued by Eric D. Bartolo and his friend because of what she said. Then you got Billy LaPierre from Clark's saying about that auditors report from New York State, how the highway superintendent Eric D. Bartolo got his family work for this stuff. There's more, if I can just remember how many. But the thing is, with the legal stuff in the budget, they don't tell you. They should put what?
By
the
case,
settlement?
you mean.
Yeah. And even Nick DiTommaso, he's sick, he's not here today, but he got shoved around, and he got a settlement. He went to the police to get this guy arrested. In 10 months, they didn't even arrest this police department. They say they have the option to do it or not. So that's really corruption. So listen, Don, we got 30 seconds to go.
It was a pleasure, Ed.
Hey,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And listen, we've done it again. At least we're up there. I hope the people appreciate the United Taxpayers.
And we're looking for new members.
And yes, that's the biggest thing. We're looking for new members to join the UTY. Please call me at 245-1018. Listen, we're out there fighting for you. We need your help. And listen, this is the last thing is you'll see my hat because they keep yelling at me when we go up there. Merry Christmas again. Happy New Year. And I hope we see you next week. And the world doesn't come to an end.
From